talk is primarily about mental health. So if it brings up any emotions for you, please make sure you talk about it with someone you trust, whether it's a friend, family member, therapist, and like make sure you're seeking help if you need it as well. But also want to call out that I've been there myself. I've got like my own mental health issues. I've overcome things. I've got my own challenges. So I don't want to pretend I have all the answers, but I want to let you know that whatever comes up here, I've probably been through it as well. So I'm going to challenge you a little bit in this talk too. So I'm going to challenge you to think about what's best for you long term, not what your brain wants you to do all the time. I prepared this at like 5 a.m. this morning, by the way, and partially yesterday my flight home from Brisbane, which is why I'm still checking notes as well. But to call out as well, I'm an extroverted neurodivergent millennials like Gen Z / millennial, for those who don't really know where they sit. The whole Google of like, am I Gen Z? Exactly. I don't use TikTok, but like I do say the word slay, so I don't really but so calling that like that is sort of my personality type, that's where I fit in. So I'm aware that this talk might not resonate with everyone, but based on the stats that I found, I'm pretty sure it will resonate with most people. But there's certain cases that it might not be the best for you. We'll just sort of see how it goes from there. I also want to call out that I did use AI to help summarize some of the parts of this talk, because even though I wrote it myself, I'm terrible at summarizing, because my little brain can't do that. I'm going to have time for that. So I got AI to help me summarize some of the points. So we're firstly going to talk about why going to the office feels hard. Anyone relate to this? Yes, exactly. So I want to know, to get an idea in the audience, so who here works fully remote? And I'm saying like even if you come in like once or twice a month, I'm counting that as like fully remote. Okay. So a few hands in the air. Yeah, I know you do, Glenn, but thank you for who is hybrid? So like maybe 2 to 3 days a week. Okay, so it's like most, yeah, okay, like, yeah, it's a bit up and down, right? And then who here is full-time office? I'm counting as 4 to 5 days a week. Okay, 2, all right. You just steal the data sets about y'all, but anyway, going to office feels hard because our brain is designed to take the easiest path, right? So going to the office is difficult because you have to get dressed, you have to catch the train, talk to people, you probably have to top up your mic because you haven't used it for like 3 weeks. And so it actually feels really difficult to do things even though we know they're good for us, right? And so there's a few other examples of things that we know are good for us and we should do them even though we don't all the time. So like exercise, for example, is one of these. Eating healthily, turning off Netflix before it goes to the like delete play apps, you know what I mean? But the thing is, we know they're good for us and we know that when we do these things, they're actually really good. But it feels difficult, so we don't do it, and so we end up being sort of stuck in a bit of a cycle. Resonating? Yeah, I'm seeing some nodding heads. That's good. So to clarify that, for the purposes of this talk, this is what I'm using as our definitions for fully remote, hybrid, and fully in person. Yeah? Cool. We're talking in the corporate context here as well, by the way. Like I'm aware that this is slightly different from people who work in healthcare and people who work in other sort of jobs as well. But at the moment, we're all corporate UX designers, so I feel like it's a safe sort of assumption. I'm also going to be rather candid and direct in this talk because as designers, we like to cut the bullshit and actually just say shit how it is. So that's pretty much exactly what I'm going to do. So I actually got a really good analogy on this that is related to dating apps. So this person, Martha Gill, who writes for The Guardian, pointed out, like, could it be the choice to work from home is sort of allowing us to self-sabotage habits we can't break by ourselves? She basically gave the analogy of dating apps where people know they sort of feel pretty shit on them and they know they'd rather connect with people in person, but instead of actually doing that, they stay at home and swipe on the apps, right? And then what happens is that there's less people out going out searching for organic connections, so less people meet each other in person, so then it becomes this whole cycle of, well, that's my only option, and then this whole thing. Does that make sense? So we're sort of doing the same thing but with work, right? We're sort of going, well, no one's going into the office, so I'm not going to go in, so then I'm going to feel pretty shit, but I'm still like not going to go in because that probably will make me feel more shit even though it won't. So that's pretty much where we got to with this, right? But there's actually some stats about why these fully remote. I'm sorry, I'll let you laugh at the meme first. Yeah. This is my favourite one. I started the presentation because it's so real. But I'll start with some stats first. So some productivity statistics of why fully remote is bad for us. So you're actually 18% less productive if you work fully remotely from a study that came out after COVID. So I'm looking at this sort of stuff as sort of the world being now, because obviously during COVID, we didn't really have much of a choice about being fully remote, so the statistics are slightly different. However, if you prefer working fully from home, you're actually 27% less productive. So it's actually sort of negative connection in that way. And it depends, like some people are more productive because they can drop off and pick up small kids from school, and like others say they get distracted more in the office, which is relatable. I also get distracted, but I get distracted at home too, so it's actually going to be the same sort of effect anywhere. We also think we're going to be micromanaged in the office, but actually we prefer structure. So it's actually important to have some level of structure. So if you have a boss that's going to sit over your shoulder and tell you you're doing something wrong all the time, maybe work from home. That's probably a good idea. But if you're going to have someone who trusts in your autonomy and trusts in your ability to do your job well, then it's better to be in the office and actually have your team managed in that way too, right? But I want to show some different stats because at the end of the day, productivity benefits the business, not the people. And because I'm a millennial who lives, Zillennial who lives in Melbourne, I'm not about capitalism. We're about designing to do things that don't burn us the fuck out. So our metric should be connection, not productivity. I'm also aware that because my boss is in the room, that we do need to have some. But you can actually find productivity data to back up both sides here, right? You can sometimes find productivity data that has some people are more productive being remote, some people are more productive working from the office. It sort of depends on where you look, but we'll look at the solution later on. It's actually a mix of the two. Because we need spontaneity and novelty in our day to feel engaged. So while I'm a little bit biased in this because I'm very neurodivergent, so I need to be able to be engaged and spontaneous and stimulated and doing different things all the time. As designers, we know that what works for a minority of the community, like for example with accessibility needs, is actually something that works for everyone. So if you design for accessibility first, you actually end up getting something that benefits the whole community, right? I love knowing my employees, this is the dream. So are we connecting though? 6 out of 10 employees around the world are quiet quitting, right? And quiet quitting, does everyone know what that is? Yeah, it's like when you sort of like don't really want to do your job, you're sort of showing up and you're working from home and you're really just checking other jobs out at home. So that's the majority of people around the world. But work stress, as it turns out, depends almost 4 times more on your engagement at work than it does on your location of where you work from. So you're more likely to be stressed about whether you're stressed from being not engaged at work than you are about where you're forced to or not forced to work from. So basically, well, actually, yeah, and the thing is when you're fully remote, you're sort of more disengaged, so it's a cycle, so, you know, it sort of goes that way. So basically, half of the workers globally reported feeling lonely or isolated after COVID. This is not working during COVID because obviously we're all lonely and isolated because that was what COVID was about. But these are all global stats except for, I think there's one more that's not a global one. Yeah, so these are all statistics globally, so these are around the world. The next part I'm going to talk about is actually more specifically the US, but I think it relates to our context because of similar working environments. So a journal article published in January this year found a general trend of increased rates of depression and anxiety for those that work completely remotely. So we're actually looking at all of the statistics and all the data and going, actually, if we work fully remotely, we're not connected to our teams, we're disengaged, we're not actually paying attention, we're also not feeling like we're part of our job, we're not feeling like we're part of a team. And so when you leave human brains unchecked, they will just go into their worst tendencies, right? So we will feed into that tendency because it feels easier, even though it's bad for us long term. So this is back to the exercise thing. It's back to the Netflix watching, even though like we also really love Netflix, and I don't want to get it on Netflix because it's actually really great. But it's about doing things in moderation, right? I'm not saying we come back to the office full time completely either because we're all tired. And how am I going to get my laundry done if I can't do it during the all hands? Sorry, Ash. And so except when I'm presenting at the all hands, but you know, it has to be a balance, right? But then we come to the chicken and the egg problem. So we want to be the change we see in the world, but this is where I'm going to share my personal story a little bit. I used to work at a job just before I started here at Purple. I started at the start of 2020. Something really big happened in 2020. I'm not sure if everyone was aware, but I was at my job started my job in January. I just come from a job where I had 250 staff members. We all worked in person every day because I was at a retail store, right? So we were like super engaged, super stimulated. You had no choice to be there because I was literally fixing people's phones, so I can't really do that remotely. But then started my job full-time in the office 6 weeks as a grad and then started working remotely. So for the majority of my time, almost 4 years, this job has been remote. And then what I started to notice after COVID, I was like, I'm super burnt out. Like, why am I burnt out? I literally sit at a desk for 8 hours a day. I don't even do anything. Like, that's remotely, physically active. Why am I tired, right? And as it turns out, it's because I wasn't connecting with the team and I sort of had my own, like, I had my social life outside of work, but I still, for the majority of my day, sat at my desk by myself, right? So I started coming into the office and then there was no one in here. So I was like, well, why would I do that? And then what ended up happening was I started coming in anyway. I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to continue showing up in the space and see who else shows up in the space too. And ended up befriending all the others that also came into the office because they were in the same boat. And then as everyone started coming back a little bit more, almost went the opposite way, where I have to stick a sticky note on my back sometimes to say, hey, I'm actually doing my training, please leave me alone. I need to actually get my work done. But it actually creates if you start to show up in the space consistently, you actually create the mental shift that you're actually open to connecting to new people and open to connecting to new things, right? And so you're actually creating that space. So I sort of became the chicken, I guess. So the chicken you want to see in the world. If you want to see Crazy Rich Asians, there's a really good line from Lynn called Buck Bitch, and she's basically like you can't swerve. You have to go in the direction and go, actually, I'm going to show up and start doing this thing for myself, right? I'm not saying it's easy though, and I don't want people to think, oh, well, that's super easy for Tom because he lives close to the city and he has no small dependents or pets or whatever. I have responsibilities too, okay? I let them die if I don't water them or whatever. But no, there is actually, like, everyone has things in their life, everyone has stuff to do, everyone has responsibilities in different parts of their life. But the thing is, if you don't carve out the time to be able to do this for yourself, you'll end up feeling more disengaged. We've seen all the statistics, but we also know this, right? I'm not giving any new information here. People know that they feel tired after the end of their 8 to 10 calls of the day, and you get off the call and you're like, oh my God, did we actually achieve anything? And if I have to stare at another backlog again, I cry, you know what I mean? Or I probably cried while staring at it, you know what I mean? So it's like, we're not actually really getting anywhere if we continue to perpetuate the cycle that is what our brains think we want to do. Because I'm going to ask people a question here. You know that, like, I'm going to ask you to think of a feeling very quickly. So, do you feel a really productive day in the office when you felt, or a job anywhere where you felt connected to your job and your purpose and your team? I've seen nods. People can think of a time, right? When was the last time you were working from home and you had a day where you felt really productive and engaged and you didn't want to cry at the end of it? Okay, so there's a little bit less nods. Okay, maybe the crying part's a bit extreme. But I guarantee it's very difficult to think of a day where you got to the end of it and you're like, wow, I actually felt like I really achieved something and really connected with so many people throughout my day. Because yeah, there's small slices of that, but there's actually still quite a lot of disengagement and distress throughout the day, right? So how do we achieve spontaneous sitcom energy, or SSC, as I abbreviate it? And for everyone's reference, this is another way of like how we get some of that work in the office. But actually, I wanted to take some things from the ADHD note as well. So hybrid work seems to be the answer. According to the National Bureau of Economic Research in the US, which actually prompted quite a couple of the stats before, hybrid work reduces attrition by 33%. So not fully in the office and not fully remote, because both of those two extremes actually burn people out both ways, right? So I'm not suggesting mandates either. As designers, we know that if you force people to do a thing, they won't do it, or they'll do it and they'll hate you for it. So it's actually about creating the incentive to come in. So that's why I'm suggesting we take advantage of something called body doubling. Does anyone know what this concept is? Okay. Some people know. The ones who know, I'm like, yeah, you get it. So basically what body doubling is it's about having an extra level of productivity by having people present. Not necessarily doing the same task together, but it's something that comes in the ADHD community around like being able to get into the right zone of feeling like you're productive. So this works for if you're a uni student, for example, and you need to get your project done and you're getting super distracted at home, but you come together in the study room, you buy a bag of jelly beans and you get all your stuff done, right? Or in the work context, it means booking a meeting with one of your colleagues or coming and sitting at a desk next to each other where, yeah, okay, you might sometimes go out for coffee or get a little bit distracted, but in general, you go, oh, actually, I'm here, I've said I'm going to do the thing, I'm actually going to be a little bit more productive. But you can't do that from home. Well, actually, you can. I do sometimes bring one of my friends over to my apartment and we work from home, but in the apartment actually works out really well for anyone else who wants to try that too. But in general, you can't really do that if you're in your space by yourself, or like it's not really the same thing as being with family, for example, because it's not really body doubling, it's more like caring for kids or caring for a partner and things like that. So also leaning into the structure of being in person. So we come in, we go, I don't want to be micromanaged. Well, actually, no one's generally micromanaging our UX designers. If they are, it might be time to maybe move on from that role. But there's actually about being excited about the structure. We think we want so much flexibility, and flexibility is good to an extent, but if you have too much flexibility, you actually can't decide what to do, and then you end up feeling like, well, I could have done that other thing better because I had a better opportunity there, but like, I don't, there's too much, it's decision paradox, but around how much time flexibility you have. So if we lean into the structure of being in person, you can actually be more likely to enjoy the office if you change the mindset there a little bit. And switching up the perception of productivity. So again, people will go, oh, well, I don't really want to be in the office because I feel like I'm not going to get anything done. There is some times where that's the case, right? Especially if you only come in once a month, you're not going to get anything done because you're so excited to see all the colleagues that you only see once a month, right? But then if you start to come in a little bit more regularly, you find that cadence of productivity, you find that ability to get a little bit more stuff done in the office, or you maybe go, okay, cool, well, I know I've got 3 tasks that I really need to do and I need no distraction. I'll actually do that from home to that particular day because I know that I'm going in the next day. It's going to be my opportunity for connection. So in classic design fashion, and because I'm running reasonably ahead of schedule, we're going to discuss this. I also have a reference a slide later on for anyone who's interested in all the articles to get here that I put together at Brisbane Airport yesterday. So I want to talk to people. Did did this resonate? What does your team do well in this space? What does your team not do well in this space? Do you want me to stop talking now so you can just ask a question? You know, so yeah, let's chat, team. Hello.
I'll jump in there.
Are we doing microphones for recording presents, or it's going to be
No,
there? Okay, cool.
in the room.
All right.
The green light means you're being recorded.
Awesome.
Cool.
Almost forgot my question.
Sorry.
So, yeah, I suppose the question and the tidbit I want to add is your hybrid works, but I do find that there's still this thing where certain people, and it's not always management, still have this anxiety around, are people turning up enough?
Yeah, and I think that's a really good one because there's this huge challenge around getting people into the office where it doesn't want to be mandated, right? And we've seen this where we have like engagement surveys at work, for example, and people will blatantly put in there, I will quit my job if you force me to come to the office, right? And then the next comment will be, I don't feel connected to my team enough, right? And so it's a really, really hard balance. And I think there's similar to a talk that Steve was giving this morning around the dumplings of the community. You're unfortunately not going to please everyone. So there'll be people at different ends of the spectrum. Some people want to sit in their hoodie all day and code or design or whatever it is. And that's fine and that works for them and they won't come into the office. And other people want to be in there all the time. And everyone's like, do you have other things to do? You know what I mean? Like, you just here all the time. So it's actually like, it's about finding the balance in the middle without really feeling like you're forcing people into something, but also at the same time recognizing that what works for this is probably going to be the best solution for everyone. I know I was just talking about accessibility before, but in this particular case of the office, it's actually important to go what works for the majority because then otherwise you're going to be trying to please the outliers and actually keep the rest of your team disengaged. Does that make sense? Hello.
Hello. Great talk. 2 points. One of the things I've started to see there, but a lot of enterprises, when they're doing the mandate, you go back into the office, they're doing it less because of productivity, but because they go, shit, we've got to sweat that asset of that 5-story building we've got in the middle of the CBD that we've just decked out for millions and millions of dollars. Completely, right? Whereas some of the other, I guess, more innovative organizations go, fuck it, this space is going to work for us, we're going to change it, we're going to put more bean bags, it's going to be a place where we just have events and some hot desks, but otherwise it's a meeting place. And I think those organisations who want to sweat the asset got to really look hard to go, is that habit, because they're forcing people to quit. That's, I guess, one point. And the other one I learned when I was working my last corporate gig before the current one is, some of my designers, sprints, 2-week sprints, got a shit done, got really anxious with the tour you got to come in because you go, it's distraction. He wants to go for coffee, then she wants to go to coffee, and I'm a week behind on my stories and my cards. I've got to get through with them. Whereas again, the leadership of the Ivory Tower said, no, people are going to come in to connect, is because the higher up you go, it's more conversations around the water cooler. Whereas if you're in a squad having to hit your 20 story points, you don't have time for fucking water cooler conversations. So unfortunately, there's a little bit of a, like we talk about the spectrum, but the expectations are misaligned based on, I guess, the level you are in the organisation. That's what I've noticed. I don't know if people have thoughts on that.
That's a really, really good point as well. I can see people have thoughts. I've seen a question from this side. Is that a point on?
Kind of.
Okay, you go for it.
Like in one of my previous roles, my team was mandated to come in on a particular day of the week, and I got a bit chastised once when I couldn't make it on that particular day, but I decided a different day I came into the office to fulfill the 1 day requirement, and I felt like similar to what was mentioned, there was like from the top, it was just everyone should come in on a day because that's when collaboration happens with your team. There's a bit of loss of sight of the need for flexibility at times, the need where, sometimes I just want to be at home and slam it out during that day, and I don't want to talk to my team today. I just want to do my job.
We're getting some insights.
Yeah, and I think that's essentially what I'm positing here as well, because I completely agree. I think if you say you have to be in Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, for example, whatever that is, that's not going to work for everyone. Like, kids pick up, people have got different arrangements to serve, people have got dance class after work or whatever. That's a personal example. But then the thing is, like, it's really, like, I think mandating is not the answer, and I agree with that, because then you essentially create it's like a guilt-based culture, right? You're coming in because you're going to be sort of yelled at if you don't. It's like guilt and shame sort of coming to that, and that's a fast way to get a really toxic work culture, right? So it's about how do you actually go help people see the benefit of what what you can get when you come in, and then people will want to, but then it's
Yeah, I guess just to add to that, like I found the days where I was like, yep, I've kind of cleaned the slate.
Yeah.
And tomorrow I'm going to come in and with all the other different team members, and we're going to go for a coffee, a long coffee maybe, but then it's still going to be a very productive day because of, as you said, that body doubling and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm not very into like mandating a particular.
No, and I agree, and I want to make it very clear. I don't know if I made this very much. I do not recommend mandating coming to the office on specific set days or anything like that, because I think that creates exactly that culture, which is the problem. And you have no spontaneity. So and no autonomy also makes you feel like a lot less sense of control. So completely agree with that. Troy.
Important question: hip hop dance or Latin?
Absolutely funk, actually.
No, I think both the points that Amir and Sean made there are critically important, and I'm loving this presentation on the beautiful neuroscience stuff that we all need to understand, and the fact that every brain is different and every team is different, and you might have some. I don't know if you guys noticed, but COVID was sort of like that super soldier serum where it brought out all of the evil if someone was already evil, but it also brought out the awesomeness when someone was really awesome, and that's stands for organisations as well. So. The high-performing team component, yes, the safety, the connection, the collaboration is just a beautiful thing, and you can self-organise and get those things happening. But yeah, when there's some mandated components, in our organisation, we've had one of the jobs coming through the funnel that we couldn't fill because it was mandated that it was 5 days a week in the office. In fact, we stopped calling it by the project management role, the company title. We just called it, okay, 5 day a week. It's up again. Who have we got for it? Because it was so hard to find anyone who would willingly volunteer.
Yeah, and I'm the same. Like if something was like coming 5 days a week, I would actually not survive. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I don't think we all go there. Absolutely, yeah, completely. Like, and then you're right, from a safety perspective, that's the same thing. All the stats shows that actually reduces your productivity and your engagement too, because you're burnt out and you don't have time to do other things in your life. So yeah, Randy, just before I get to your question, I think I had a couple of things for here.
Sorry, let's go.
1 minute. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So I don't know if you experienced this, but I think we also forgot how to work in the same space. So we all, I don't know how many people have experienced this. We all in the same meeting room using Miro and not talking to each other, even though we have a whiteboard in front of us. So why am I there if we need to be in our computers and it's not going to be recorded anyway? We might as well use Miro.
Yeah,
so
and like
this is something that is pushing us to. It kind of makes reality like not to make sense anymore.
Yeah, like we've forgotten how to do that, right? And you see people on the floor who are joining the same call from different desks. And like, yeah, exactly. Right? So yeah, exactly. So I think that's a really good point too. And I think it's about like we need to build it up as a skill again because we don't have the skill anymore. So you're completely right. Do we have 30 seconds to? Okay, come chat to me after. Come chat to me afterwards. Yeah.